What if everything you thought you knew about Vikings was wrong? Forget the horned helmets, the mindless raiding, and the barbaric image. Because today, we're diving deep into 9 surprising Viking facts that completely challenge what you learned in school. From fearless explorers who reached North America before Columbus, to highly groomed warriors who bathed more than medieval Europeans, the real Vikings were far more advanced, diverse, and sophisticated than we give them credit for. And make sure you stay until the end. These facts will absolutely change how you view Viking civilization forever. Before we begin, hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss more eye-opening truths from history. 1. Vikings were surprisingly clean. When you think of Vikings, you probably imagine unwashed warriors covered in dirt and blood. But here's the truth. Vikings were obsessively clean compared to their European counterparts. Excavations of Viking settlements have uncovered a wide variety of grooming tools. Combs, razors, tweezers, even ear cleaners, many carved from animal bones and antlers. They bathed at least once a week, usually on what they called washing day or loggadag, the Norse word for Saturday, a tradition that still exists in languages like Swedish and Icelandic. Hot springs were used when available, and unlike most Europeans of the time, Vikings washed their clothes regularly and oiled their hair. Arab traveller Ahmad ibn Fadlan wrote in the 10th century that Viking men were extremely conscious of their appearance, combing their hair daily and always keeping grooming tools on them. So next time someone calls them filthy barbarians, remind them the Vikings were likely cleaner than most people in medieval Europe. 2. Vikings used hidden ports and secret harbours. We often hear about major Viking settlements like York or Dublin, but the truth is, the Vikings didn't just rely on large, fortified ports. They created networks of hidden harbours along coastlines and islands, tiny, often unmarked landing sites that allowed for quick raids and stealthy escapes. A 3-year archaeological voyage using replica Viking ships led to the discovery of several unknown harbours in Norway, far from major known trade routes. These secret spots weren't accidents. Vikings built them purposefully, often in natural coves or among rocky inlets, allowing them to dock without being seen from the shore. They used this decentralized system to their advantage, making it nearly impossible for enemies to track their movements. This wasn't just tactical, it was strategic planning at its finest. The Vikings weren't just seafaring raiders. They were elite navigators who mastered maritime geography long before the invention of modern maps. 3. Viking DNA reveals shocking diversity. If you picture Vikings as a homogeneous group of tall, blonde Scandinavians, think again. A massive genetic study of over 400 Viking-era skeletons from sites across Europe and Greenland has completely changed our understanding. The study, published in the journal Nature, revealed that Viking DNA was incredibly diverse. Many Vikings had dark hair and Southern European ancestry. Some had Slavic roots. Others showed genetic traces from Central Asia, the Middle East, and the British Isles. Viking raiding and trading wasn't just about gold and glory. It was about migration, integration, and expansion. Many Vikings weren't born in Scandinavia at all. Some were adopted into Norse culture, others married in, and some were enslaved but later freed and became part of the Viking world. So when you imagine a Viking today, picture a global citizen of the early medieval world, not just a blonde brute from the north. 4. Vikings reached America before Columbus. It's now universally accepted, Vikings were the first Europeans to reach North America. Around the year 1000 AD, Leif Erikson, son of Eric the Red, led a voyage west from Greenland to what he called Vinland, now believed to be Newfoundland, Canada. There, the Vikings established a short-lived settlement at Laonsog Meadows, which archaeologists have confirmed through Norse-style buildings, tools, and even ironworking. This happened nearly 500 years before Christopher Columbus set foot in the New World. But the Viking presence didn't last. Conflicts with native peoples, harsh conditions, and the isolation from supply lines led to the abandonment of the site. Still, it proves that the Norse were bold navigators who crossed oceans long before most of Europe dared to. 5. Vikings were global traders. We often hear about Viking raids on monasteries and coastal towns, but what about their commercial side? Vikings were sophisticated international traders who built economic connections from North America to the Middle East. They exported animal furs, amber, walrus ivory, and slaves. In return, they received silver, silk, spices, wine, and glassware. In fact, Viking hordes in Scandinavia have turned up Arabic coins, Persian jewelry, and Chinese silk. One hoard found in Sweden contained over 200 Islamic silver dirhams, clear evidence of regular trade with the Islamic world. The Vikings weren't just looting and leaving. They were setting up long-term trade routes, many of which were guarded, organized, and taxed. Think of them as the Amazon Prime of the Middle Ages, fast, far-reaching, and surprisingly organized. Viking women had more power than you think. In Viking society, women weren't just housewives or background figures. They could own land, run farms, and even initiate divorce. Burial sites across Scandinavia show women buried with weapons, jewelry, and tools, suggesting a complex role in both domestic life and possibly even combat. One famous burial in Birka, Sweden, originally assumed to be a male warrior, was later confirmed through DNA testing to be a woman, buried with swords, arrows, and 2 horses. Saga literature also supports this, telling tales of shield maidens and female warriors. Viking women weren't passive observers of history. They were leaders, influencers, and sometimes warriors. 7. Viking burial mounds were advanced time capsules. Viking burials weren't just ceremonies, they were engineering marvels. Kings and nobles were often buried in ships filled with goods, weapons, and even animals. Some burials involved massive stone constructions, symbolic layouts, and astronomical alignments. One ship burial at Oseberg included not just the vessel and 2 women, but also textiles, kitchenware, sleds, and even intricately carved animal head posts. These burials were designed not just to honor the dead, but to communicate power, knowledge, and belief systems to the future. They weren't just graves, they were messages. 8. Vikings practiced law and trial by combat. Despite their violent reputation, Vikings had a surprisingly robust legal system. Local councils called things were held to settle disputes, create laws, and even elect leaders. Trial by combat, known as holmgang, was a formalized process with rules and limits, a way to settle scores with public oversight. Breaking the law could mean fines, exile, or in extreme cases, death. The Vikings even had laws protecting women, land boundaries, and the rights of slaves. Their society wasn't chaos, it was order through strength and tradition. The Vikings were engineers, artists, and poets. Their longships were technological masterpieces, light, fast, and capable of ocean and river travel. They built structures with interlocking timbers, created runestones that blended art and history, and passed down poetic sagas that rival classical epics. Their metalwork featured fractal-like designs, and their mythology inspired a worldview that combined fate, heroism, and complex cosmology. They weren't just warriors, they were craftsmen, creators, and philosophers. So, the next time someone mentions Vikings, remember, they weren't just violent raiders in horned helmets. They were clean, strategic, diverse, spiritual, artistic, and incredibly ahead of their time. Which fact blew your mind the most? Let us know in the comments. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more fascinating truths from the hidden corners of history.